Welcome, everybody, to the Wake Up Call channel. Most of you know that I've been talking about this red and blue state division, at least what I'm seeing from the media, from all these things that we've all talked about with Civil War. We constantly see them trending Civil War. We've obviously seen the movie Civil War propaganda, and everybody out there can feel the tensions between Republicans and Democrats, and it's only getting worse and worse by the day, especially after the fake assassination attempt on Donald Trump. So what we need to, at least what I'm doing, is monitoring bizarre activities that are happening in certain states that would definitely make people of the opposite political ideology want to leave the state, so to speak, right? So in other words, states that are banning a woman's right to end a baby's life, right? States that are banning that, we know Democrats don't want to live in those states because they feel like somehow that has to do with a woman's freedom. So they're leaving those states, right? We see the propaganda machine put commercials out about those politicians trying to imprison people for crossing state lines that live in a certain state and are leaving that state to go and get an abortion in another state. That's all done by design. That's all out there so that you go, I can't live in that state, right? So most conservatives, as we know, have fled states like New York and California, done by design. Where have they gone? States like Florida and Texas. Those are states that we can see, obviously, as Republican states and Democrat states, right? So from there, as we watch where this is headed, at least in my opinion, where it's headed, and again, I have to emphasize that, that's my belief on everything I've seen. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to happen. I do not have any inside knowledge, and I am not a YouTube prophet. But we have to watch these stories and then watch how they gaslight us with a lot of the stories like this. Here's a story: Southern supermarkets selling ammo out of vending machines. Now, would that make anybody out there comfortable to go to a grocery store? Specifically, people out there who believe the news, that believe a lot of these false flag events happen at grocery stores. We've seen a lot of false flags at grocery stores in the last couple of years, right? To make you uncomfortable at a grocery store. Well, if you knew that the grocery store, and you were a Democrat, was selling ammo, I guarantee that 99% of Democrats would not go to that specific grocery. Just like I'm sure if they tell you there's another outbreak and there's a specific grocery store that says you don't need a mask, those people who wear a mask would not go to that grocery store, right? So if you haven't heard, let me play for you the news clip of what's happening in some of these southern states where they're having supermarkets where you could literally buy ammo. Why? No other reason other than to gaslight and to divide people on where they want to live, in my opinion.
This morning, a controversial vending machine company is in the line of fire. A grocery store in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, is the first to remove a kiosk that sells ammunition as the city council considered the vending machine's legality.
I got some calls about ammunition being sold in grocery stores.
Vending machine.
The vending machines, is that, I thought it was a lot. I thought it was a joke.
The vending machine is made by American Rounds, which says it uses artificial intelligence and facial recognition technology to match buyers of the ammo with their ID cards. The company says the novel way of selling ammo for shotguns, pistols, and rifles will reduce theft and increase safety. Writing on its website, all transactions comply with federal and local regulations, maintaining the highest standards of responsible sales. It says 6 kiosks have now been installed in stores in Alabama and Oklahoma, and it plans to expand throughout the South.
We're really excited about where we're going. We are going to continue to expand here in Alabama. We have a machine slated to go into Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas.
A manager at the Tuscaloosa store that removed the machine says it was not because of the city council meeting, but because of a lack of sales. The city has since verified that the vending machines are legal, and while many are enthusiastic about the kiosks, critics are taking aim online. One writing, deeply dystopian. Another quipping, what could go wrong? Users of the vending machine must be over 21.
So this whole notion is really incredible if you think about it. You go to the grocery store to do what? I would hope to get food, maybe pick up ladies. I don't know if people even do that anymore. But you're not going to a grocery store to buy ammo. You go to an ammo store, a gun store, to buy ammunition. So why would they be doing this other than the reason to make people say, you know what, if certain states pass laws where you could buy guns and buy ammo in a grocery, well, Democrats won't want to live there. And that's what I talk about when I say, watch states that do bizarre things like this, because you start to see where they align themselves. I talked about Tennessee with the chemtrail ban. Okay, that's gaslighting 101. They're not banning chemtrails in any of these states. Okay. Tennessee came out and said, we're going to ban chemtrails. They're actually admitting that chemtrails are real now. Well, what do you think that's for? It's to try to get people like me and you to go to states like Tennessee to say, all right, there's no chemtrails there. I don't have to worry about geoengineering. I don't have to worry about, feeling sick and tired and everything else that comes with chemtrailing, right? Well, that's done by design because none of these politicians care about us and they're all working together. So adults in some U.S. states can now buy gun ammo out of AI-powered vending machines right at their local grocery store. Who asked for this? Nobody did. Nobody asked for this. It's an insane notion, and conservatives should say the same exact thing. This shouldn't be a red and blue thing, but part of what they've done with their MK Ultra is take Republicans and literally make them into, gun enthusiasts. And I'm not talking about, hey, I own a gun to protect my home, because me personally, I own guns to protect myself and my, where I am. I don't trust anything that's going on with the government. And I believe that the people should have the right to bear arms as long as the government has weapons, has guns, right? If the government themselves, if somehow there was a button to wipe all guns off the face of the earth, I'd be for it. But it'd have to include the government's right to bear arms because they cannot be trusted. And it's very clear. That's why the right to bear arms exists. They don't say this to the liberals out there. Like, hey, if Donald Trump is president, you might want to, bear arms because maybe this MAGA, terrorist group they've been telling you about, which isn't really a terrorist group, but we're starting to see how unhinged they could get with this Trump assassination. Maybe you'll be afraid that they'll come to your door, so maybe you should, bear arms, which is the way they should be thinking, right? But instead, of course, they've just made everybody afraid, and not think about the dangers of a government having arms and the civilians not having arms. But nobody's asked for this, right? So my point, before I continue reading on, is that even conservatives should look at this and say, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No, they shouldn't be allowed to buy ammo right in a grocery store, right? You go to the grocery store to buy groceries, but they've made, there's a formula for the Democrats and there's a formula that we see for conservatives, right? This MAGA movement, how they look, how they dress, how they act, right? We could see the two sides of it. We could see how you could identify a MAGA person, not just by their MAGA hat. You could look at them and know what their politics are, just like you can look at a Democrat and know what their politics are. It's incredible. They don't even realize that they're, being formulated to look and act a certain way. So we know that they're all for this. Like, yeah, get bullets in the grocery. Why? Oh, nobody's actually thought about why. Well, the government's the one who's behind doing all this because they want people to be afraid in certain states. Oh, I got to leave the state. They're selling bullets in Alabama. I can't live in Alabama at the grocery store. That's insane. This is a conservative state. There's too much conservative MAGA crazy stuff. And then they go. And it hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. I shouldn't say it hasn't happened yet because it has, because a lot of conservatives are the ones who have left a lot of states that had vax mandates. But the same thing has to happen with Democrats. They have to be moved around like cattle. That's what they look at us as, cattle. So that's what these things are for. So the company that makes the ammo, as you heard, argues it's safer to have ammo sold in the grocery store than online or off the shelf, but experts have raised concerns about increasing its availability in a country where gun violence is already widespread. And again, for those of you out there who are new to this stuff, the gun violence is not widespread. The government creates false events so that the civilians want gun rules and gun laws put in place. It's very easy to see, how they're doing this. They're creating and staging it. Kind of like, for years and years and years when we all talked about this stuff, Democrats are like, you're telling us that they're staging these stories. Well, now after the fake assassination, they're suddenly thinking to themselves, wait a minute, the government, Trump must have staged this whole thing to make himself look like a victim. Okay, now think about it on a mass scale, where it's two groups of people pretending to be on the opposite side, Republicans and Democrats working together. Don't you think they would make fake news to manipulate you into wanting laws and rules that you don't even know that you want in the first place? Because they're the ones who want it. They're the ones who want gun laws in place. And they're making you beg for them because it's nothing more than a government operation. So the company is arguing it's a safer way. American Rounds LLC currently stocks its automated ammo retail machines in 8 supermarkets across Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas. At least one was removed earlier this month from an Alabama location per local news reports. They are launching another this week in Colorado and say many more are on the way. We had requests in Hawaii, Alaska, California to Florida, and every state in between for the most part. Now, states like California, you know that there's a 0% chance that California is ever going to have this. This guy is saying that there's been requests made from civilians civilians are saying, who are gun advocates in the state, are saying, oh, yeah, get it. The government itself is not going to allow ammo to be sold at a grocery store in California. We could all guarantee that. So they say they have currently 200 grocery stores that they're working on fulfilling orders on these machines for. And again, you got to love how the conservative crowd loves all this high-tech technology, right? They're all old school, they're all patriots, but they're fine with getting ammo via face scanner and giving up their biometric data to the government, right? Shows you just how clueless most of them are. They're like, yeah, sure. Oh, okay, well, you're going to need biometric data in order to buy ammo at the grocery store, and they're fine giving that up, right? Again, this is also another way to track these people who are buying ammo at the grocery store. I'm sure they're going on some type of government watch list immediately, because if you're going to the grocery store and you're leaving with 100 rounds or 1,000 rounds or whatever the limit is, I'm sure it's going right to the government. They're like, hey, here's a guy who's taking the bait and going to the grocery store to buy ammunition. Right now you're on a government watch list, and you also gave your biometric data because you looked right into the camera, probably had to give a fingerprint too, and a retina scan. So good luck with that. So again, when stories like this come out, that's how my brain works. I start looking at this and I say to myself, why in the world would this happen? No civilians are asking for it. And this isn't a business model that you would think that any grocery store would say, that's great, especially after the government staged multiple false flags at grocery stores over the last 5 years or so, right? So they're saying that ammunition is traditionally sold off of the shelf. It just sits openly like boxes of cereal at a grocery store. Federal law prohibits dealers from selling handgun ammo to anyone under 21 and long gun ammunition to anyone under 18. The same federal laws that disqualify people from accessing firearms based on things like their criminal history also apply to ammo, though do not require sellers to conduct background checks, according to outlets out there. Gun Control Research and Advocacy Center says only a handful of states have passed laws requiring background checks or licenses to purchase ammunition. And those things are coming as well. And maybe if they put these in a bunch of grocery stores, then they'll change the laws too to require background checks in those states that don't have it already. Maybe it's heading towards that as well, not just a left-right divide. But just the whole notion of this stuff, it's laughable, really. And the fact that any civilian is okay with it is a little bit mind-blowing to me. I mean, the whole notion of it's ridiculous, but they're actually getting people so enthusiastic to be gun owner MAGA patriots that they probably think that this should be sold, at the hospital, at the grocery store, at the bank. Wouldn't surprise me. They'll be like, yeah, we're patriots. We should have it at the bank too. And then, of course, they'll feed over their biometric data without even realizing it, because all of the alt-right media and Jones and all these other people will tell you, oh, yeah, well, the technology stuff isn't the biggest concern. No, it's the biggest threat to humanity. They even tell you that AI is the biggest threat to humanity, but you will lose all your privacy. You will lose all your rights to artificial intelligence, right, which is all done through the government. So, yeah, let's continue focusing about people with blue hair instead of focusing on, hey, maybe we should get rid of AI now and get rid of this tech now instead of letting them release more and more insane technology and then we just do nothing about it, but let these men behind curtains release this stuff, and then we aren't concerned about deep fakes and all that. Oh, well, it's a concern. How about you just nuke the technology and make it illegal to have it, and anybody that uses it will go to jail? That'll be a pretty quick way to get rid of it. And who are the people that unleashed that type of tech? Oh, just movie producers and stuff in Hollywood? No, they don't even tell you, right? I mean, it's all incredible. But anyway, we got ammo being sold in grocery stores, folks. I mean, what's next? I don't know. Maybe soon they'll be selling bombs in federal buildings. I mean, the whole notion of this is utter insanity. And it's nothing more, in my opinion, than to continue to have these bizarre things in place in conservative states and bizarre things in place in Democrat states, things that would make people so gaslit that they would leave the states that they're in because they wouldn't feel safe or comfortable. Kind of like the outbreak did when people were getting mandates forced on them to have a job and people were fleeing their states. You see how this works? Yeah, it works a lot like that. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.